Steve McQueen's story has never been properly told. That's another big thing. There are all kinds of biographies about Steve McQueen, and they mentioned Kelley, the crazy guy. I've talked to some of these authors. They never really investigated it properly. I know the whole story. In fact, in this office, about 25 feet from where we're sitting, I have Steve McQueen's complete medical records, even when he used assumed names. I've got all his records here. I got them from Kelley. So they're in this office. I know the whole story. I know it like nobody else has because no one else has ever had his complete medical file. McQueen was kind of a reckless guy, motorcycle racer, smoker, drinker, lived a hard life, as he's famous for. He started getting sick 1978, 1979. He went to his fancy Los Angeles doctors, and they kind of blew it off. He lived too hard. He got to cut down the smoking. No one took him seriously. Finally, he was so debilitated, he went to his doctors. He says, you got to do something. Finally, the genius gets the idea. Let's do a chest X-ray. He's got tumors in both lungs. They work him up. He's got metastatic mesothelioma. Mesothelioma is associated with asbestos exposure. Well, he was a motorcycle fanatic. And in those days, the pipes in motorcycles were lined with asbestos. And he would work on his own, he was a great mechanic and work on his own motorcycles. So he was exposed to a huge amount of asbestos and ended up with mesothelioma. In those days, 35 years ago and today, mesothelioma is completely incurable once it spreads. The only hope is to get it early and do surgery. Well, his brilliant doctors had completely missed the diagnosis for a year, so by the time it was diagnosed, it was metastatic. Then the geniuses decided to give him immunotherapy. I'm trained as a classical immunologist under Robert Good. There's never been a study in the history of the world showing immunotherapy has any effect on mesothelioma. Talk about quackery. And they'd give it to him. Didn't work, so then they decided to give him radiation, or maybe they gave him the radiation first. I'd have to pull out my notes. There's never been a study in the history of the world showing radiation works with mesothelioma. Guess what? It didn't work. So he ends up with stage 4 advancing cancer, weeks from death, goes to see Kelley. Kelley made one fatal mistake in the treatment of Steve McQueen. He took him on as a patient. He was too advanced, and he was a reckless guy. He was still smoking, still drinking. But he pleaded, and Kelley was a very compassionate guy. He said, I'll treat you, but you're too weak. You can't do this at home the way most of my patients do. There was a hospital in Mexico at the time that was administering parts of Kelley's therapy. He says, go down to that hospital in Mexico, and I'll kind of direct them. And he did, and wasn't 100% compliant. He still had the Haagen-Dazs ice cream kind of smuggled in from his friends and cigarettes. But he did enough of it, so he started getting better. And then one of the doctors in Mexico gets the brilliant idea, let's open him up because they think the tumor he had a tumor in his abdomen as well as in his chest. Let's take it out, I think it's a dead tumor. They do the surgery, the next day he dies of a pulmonary embolus, which is a blood clot in the lungs. He did not die of mesothelioma. In fact, the tumor was a dead tumor. Kelley used to have it in his office in formaldehyde, a dead tumor that had shrunk down from a huge tumor down to nothing. It was dead. He didn't die from, the way the media reports read, which I have, it's like Kelley took a gun and shot McQueen, this crazy quack doctor. The true story has never been told.